Hello, I'm Sarah the Gallifreyan Ravenclaw. So, as we're now exactly halfway through Series 14, Season 1 of Doctor Who, I thought I'd do a sort of recap of all the mysteries and questions throughout this series that I discussed in my initial video, and sort of update with my latest theories. So the mysteries we have, which you'll have noticed I've been talking about a lot in my community posts and edits. So, the Meeps boss, the one who waits, the oldest one, Mrs. Flood, Susan Twist's characters, and Ruby's parents and origins. So, question 1. Is the Meeps boss on that list twice? Most likely. I suspect that the Meeps boss is someone else on that list. Are they the one who waits, or is that Susan Twist's character? So, talking of Susan Twist's character, what are her aims? She seems to just be stalking the Doctor through time and space, but has seemed to be mostly actively avoiding actually meeting him. The Doctor has only seen her face when she was an AI ambulance interface. The Doctor and Donna only saw Isaac. Trudy's the only one who saw her in the pub. The Doctor was there, but he didn't see her. They were distracted by Pipes and Jocelyn when her message was on the screen. If you look carefully in the Devil's Cord, she turns round just as the Doctor turns round. So far they've only really seen her face as the ambulance AI, and Ruby did vaguely recognise her in 73 Yards, but then that never happened, so Ruby now doesn't even remember that, and she disregarded it going, no, why would you remind me of an ambulance from an AI from the future? So they still haven't really recognised her or started to think anything about it, because Ruby disregarded that anyway and then has now forgotten it. So let's assume that the one who waits isn't anyone else on this list for a minute. If they're not anyone else on this list, who are they? They've got to be someone the Doctor's met before, right? But even the Toymaker was scared of them, so who scares the Toymaker? It's got to be someone else that the Doctor encountered many, many years ago. Probably a classic villain. But who scares the Toymaker? Most of the Pantheon wouldn't scare the Toymaker. So I'll get on to my theory of that one in a minute. So the oldest one. The oldest one has currently only been referenced by Maestro, although they said that he was there on the night of Ruby's birth. So is the oldest one related to Ruby? Is the oldest one Ruby's dad? Maestro did specify he, which rules out Ruby's mum, Mrs. Flood, and Susan Twist's character. So that rules out them being the same person as most of this list. They can only really still be the Meeps boss or someone related to Ruby, but they can't be Ruby's mum. So what about Mrs. Flood? We haven't really seen her at all this series. She had those 4 seconds in 73 Yards when she just sort of went, yeah, not my business, and left. Like, that's all we've seen since the 4th wall break? Really? She was such an obvious mystery thrown in our face at the end of the Christmas special, and she now seems pretty much forgotten about. Like, no one's interested in her anymore. So I assume she'll appear in the finale, but the Doctor and Ruby still don't know there's anything about her. They don't know she knows what a TARDIS is. So I suspect that it's the Doctor and Ruby may discover in the finale what we already know, that she knows something. I suspect in the finale the Doctor and Ruby will learn that Mrs. Flood knows something. They'll learn that she knows about the TARDIS or something. So then they'll try and work out who she is for next series. So I don't think Mrs. Flood is going to be answered this series anymore. There is still the possibility in the finale, but I think in the finale they're just going to discover that she knows something, and we're going to have to wait till next series to find out who she is. So what about Ruby? The scan at the end of Space Babies did say Homo sapien, but that doesn't rule out a sort of human plus something like River, or even something that the TARDIS can't recognise. That's not unheard of, certainly if you're talking about godlike powers like the Toymaker. Maestro was able to control the TARDIS just by playing the piano. So if Ruby is human plus something like the Toymaker, then of course the TARDIS probably wouldn't recognise that. Especially seen as the Doctor's still getting used to all these new things like magic and myths all coming true since he cast Salt at the Edge of the Universe. So the TARDIS may have picked up something else but doesn't know what it is. She certainly has some ability. Snow's the obvious one. It's been snowing in every single episode, and it seems to be she's causing it. Both her and the Doctor are aware she's causing it somehow. There have been some other manifestations, including she says Star Trek and 5 minutes later we see the crew's outfits that you can't tell me they're not from Star Trek. And she said Strictly, and at the end of The Devil's Cord, 2 of the Strictly professionals are there, despite the fact that neither of them should be that age. That episode was set in the 60s, and clearly they're both not the age they were in the 60s. I don't think Johannes would even have been born in the 60s. And there have been theories about 73 Yards that it all manifested around Ruby, like the universe intern left, that it manifested around her, and the reason that it involved Roger Ap Gwilliam was because the Doctor had mentioned him. All she knew about him was those few lines the Doctor had said at the beginning. So my theory about Ruby is the Doctor knows who her mum is. He chased after her, he recognised her, he knows who she is. And Ruby is related to some magical being. So basically she wouldn't exist if the Doctor hadn't cast the Salt in the Toymaker's domain and all that stuff was now happening. And I already said I don't think Mrs. Flood is going to be answered this series, but I do think Susan Twist is. And I have mentioned before, I haven't yet explained Susan Twist to my family. I'm sort of waiting to see if they spot her, because I assume at some point it is going to be made obvious, like Mrs. Flood was. And they haven't yet picked up on her, and so I'm waiting for it to be made more obvious, maybe the Doctor and Ruby saying more about recognising her. So I'm assuming at some point it's going to have to be made obvious for people who haven't worked it out, because it's only us super geeks who are checking all the things who have noticed her. So what about the finale's big bad? We know Susan Twist is in the finale, and that's probably going to be when the Doctor and Ruby actually recognise her, and they'll show the flashbacks to explain her to everyone. Is she Susan Triad? Is that the villain, or is she actually trying to help? And she's been following them to keep an eye on them and protect them and make sure they get there. Using technology being bad is a very Russell thing, certainly for a finale, as it was the Series 3 finale with the Archangel Network, and it was in The Giggle, which was the 60th finale. So that is always a possibility that Triad Technologies is bad, but it could also just be she's been looking after the Doctor and Ruby and trying to help them get there so they can help her fix whatever's going on. Maybe some alien has taken over her technology and she needs the Doctor's help. What about the big question, are there Daleks in the finale? Almost certainly. Russell has said 100 times that there's no returning monsters this series. But take a look at this picture of the dust cloud, and here are the Daleks that I've just pictured it in. Hopefully badly so it doesn't get mistaken for a real image. Is it just me who can see where they've been CGI'd out of the dust cloud? So, what about the bigger question? Do I think the Daleks should be in the finale? If you've seen my When Should the Master Return video, you know I said about keeping it simple for new viewers and not overcomplicating things. Like, apart from that quick bit in Space Babies, there haven't really been anything about Time Lords. So having the Master turn up now would be confusing, because the Doctor's said that he thinks that all the other Time Lords are dead anyway. Having the Master show up would involve a lot of sort of Time Lord lore. But the Daleks are the things that even if you've never seen Doctor Who, you know about. There's a great interview on Jonathan Ross' show that Catherine Tate did just before Series 4 aired, where she said before she became Donna, she thought that the Doctor just fought the Daleks every week. She had no idea there were different monsters. I'll put the link in the description if I can find the interview. So obviously the Doctor would need to give Ruby a 30-second explanation of what a Dalek is. Say, my oldest enemies, I've fought them plenty of times, they hate everything that's not Dalek and want to destroy it. Done. You don't need to explain what happened in Genesis of the Daleks. You don't even need to mention Davros. You can mention Davros later on. You can have the Daleks appear 3 times and then just go, this is Davros, he's the creator of the Daleks. Done. They don't need to mention the Time War because that's not what he was talking about when he was saying all the Time Lords were dead anyway. So the Time War can be ignored entirely. So you literally just need to say, like, oldest enemies, hate everything not Dalek, want to kill everything else. Done. That's good enough for Ruby, so that should be good enough for anyone else. And Chibnall did try in Series 11 having no returning monsters, and most people will agree that's one of the weakest series of New Who, and certainly up there for weakest finale, because Zimshar was not a good finale villain. You needed a bigger threat, and he wasn't one. I think the best example on how to bring back classic monsters without any explanation, personally, is the Macra in Gridlock, which obviously was during Russell's first era. It was years until I discovered Macra were from Classic. Because the Doctor did reference meeting them before, but he does that for pretty much every species. The Doctor always knows what the species is, even if they've never appeared on screen before. And they were the monsters of the episode, but their giant crabs was all you needed to know. So all you need is a few words about the Daleks and you're done. So talking of classic villains, there is one name that's been floating around for a while from the 4th Doctor's era. Sutekh. It's with all the idea of gods, I think this is mostly resurfaced. So I haven't actually seen Pyramids of Mars. I listened to the audio version many years ago, so apologies if I've got this wrong. But if I remember correctly, he was the ancient Egyptian god who was imprisoned by those who used to worship him because he went evil on Mars, and the Doctor and Sarah Jane had to try and stop him escaping. So I could see the Toymaker or someone else like that trying to release Sutekh to cause more chaos in the universe. Chaos leads quite nicely on to the final name that has been floating around. The Trickster, who is a member of the Pantheon that the Doctor said that Maestro was, and has never appeared in person in Doctor Who, but did multiple times during the Sarah Jane adventures. But the Trickster's Brigade did appear in Doctor Who, most noticeably the Beetle in Turn Left, and other members of the Brigade did appear in Torchwood. Russell has said that the leader of the Pantheon is not the Toymaker. We haven't seen them yet. That they're still to come. So if we're placing bets on the leader of the Pantheon, mine would probably go on the Trickster. The Trickster lives and feeds off chaos. Like the Toymaker lives for the game, Maestro is music. The Trickster is chaos. So the Doctor has come face to face with the Trickster before in the Sarah Jane adventures, during Sarah Jane's wedding. So with godlike beings returning and the Sarah Jane adventures having been during Russell's run, and certainly as it was the 10th Doctor who came face to face with the Trickster, Russell would have had input in that episode. So the Trickster would certainly be on my list for a reappearance. So there is a good point about the Trickster that a number of people have been making. There is a plot that was never finished. If you don't know, the Sarah Jane Adventures was cancelled quite suddenly, mid-series, due to the death of Elizabeth Sladen. They managed to finish the first half of the series, but they hadn't filmed the second half. So there is a plot that was never finished for that. In the final series of Sarah Jane Adventures, Sarah Jane found a baby girl on her doorstep, who she soon learnt wasn't human when she basically magically turned into a teenager. She named her Sky and adopted her, and then the rest of the series she was sort of getting used to her new life. But that story was never finished. I don't know the exact story, and I don't know if it was ever fully published what the plan had been. But it was supposed to involve the Trickster having been the one who dropped her off. So is Russell using a version of Sky's origin story? using the plot that was never finished? Are Ruby's origins similar to Skye? I said in 73 Yards, you could argue she created that parallel universe around her. Like in Turn Left, when Donna had the Beetle, which is a member of the Tricksters Brigade. So it all involves the Trickster. I think we can all agree that Ruby is not normal. She may appear human, but there is something else going on. So if we don't learn Ruby's origins in the episode The Legend of Ruby Sunday, will we in the finale, when we meet the head of the Pantheon, will we meet the Trickster who hints that they know Ruby's origins, and then that continues into next series? So let me know all your Season 1, Series 14 theories in the comments below. I'm probably not going to do another one of these throughout the series. I've been doing sort of edits with these mysteries. I did the one of the different mysteries with the boss and the one who waits, and then I've been doing weekly Susan Twist appearances, which has been harder and harder to fit into the 1 minute shorts time limit, but has the backing music of There's Always a Twist. I may make a full version of that once we finish the series, which isn't only a minute long. So what do you think? What is Ruby? Is she fully human, or is she a magical being? Would she exist if it wasn't for the salt and the gods and all the myths and legends that are becoming true? Is the finale villain Susan Twist's character, Sutekh, the Trickster, the Daleks, or someone else? Who do you think is the big villain of the finale? Is it going to be we find out in the finale, or are we going to find out in the end of The Legend of Ruby Sunday? As that is the episode that Russell has said, watch immediately, don't wait to watch. Watch it as soon as you can, because there will be spoilers. Does it end with like Series 2 finale of the ball opening and the Daleks coming out? Or in like Utopia of realising it's the Master? So who do you think the villain is? Do you think Susan Twist's character is good or bad? Do you think we will learn about Mrs. Flood this series, or is that for next series? And Verada Sethu, do you think that it is Mundy who is going to be the companion next series? Or is it a different character? In which case, is it just a recurring actor? There are plenty of those. Check the edit series on my channel, with the obvious companion ones being Karen Gillan and Freema Agyeman, both appeared prior. Or is Mundy an Oswin? Is it actually the same character? Or is Mundy just the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter of the companion in the next series? Is the companion in the next series from modern day? Because the original filming photos were sort of 1950s. So is she from the 1950s? Or is it just that's the adventure that she went on the Doctor with and they filmed first? So let me know all your theories down in the comments below and on my community posts and videos. And I've got plenty more Season 1 edits planned, so I've actually postponed most of my other edits. So my usual series will be back after the season. And all my daily community posts going up throughout the entire series. So keep involved in those. Remember, Sunday ones will contain spoilers, but that's not till Sunday evening, so you've got plenty of time to watch the episode by then. Sunday evening UK time. So you've got over 40 hours to watch the episode before my community post will contain spoilers. So leave all your theories down below. Other than that, thank you for watching. Bye.